Hello and welcome to lesson number 8 in Foundations of Research. And we're going to talk about measures of central tendency and variability today. And since we're starting to get into statistics, I figured we needed to start off with a joke. So we're going to talk about what's called descriptive statistics. And this is an easy way to analyze data, and it can be used to try to determine the meaning from data. You probably have done some of these descriptive statistics already and not really realize that you have done it, but they are the most basic of any statistics. So you probably did this, let me think, maybe in 7th or 8th grade, maybe in high school, but we're going to talk about measures of central tendency, which you should all be very familiar with. It's the most commonly used statistic that we have, and what you do is you take a group of numbers and you pull them together and you figure out different things about them. So as I was saying, you probably did this in middle school or high school where we figured out the mean, median, and mode. These should be terms that you've heard before, even though you may be a little rusty on using them. They're pretty easy and really a good form of statistics. So today we're going to talk about one measure of central tendency, and that's the mean. It's the most commonly used one, and it's relatively easy. I put up this very simplistic picture just to remind you of how it is, but you take all the numbers that you have. The numbers that are here in red are counting how many numbers you have. You have 3 numbers, so you have 2, 3, and 4. You add them together. You take your total divided by the total number that you have in your data set to get the mean. It's also called the arithmetic average. Now let's talk a little bit about the mean, because you're going to have to do this in an assignment. So I'm going to show you some good ways to figure out how to do this. So here are all these numbers. If you count the grid, you see it goes 4 across and 5 down, so that is 20 numbers. What you can do, if I can get Excel to pop up here for a second, what you can do is you can highlight these numbers and copy them into Excel and use Excel to do all the work for you. So let me show you how to do that. So I had to take it out of slideshow view so I can copy these numbers. I copy these numbers and then I open up Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and paste this. It doesn't matter really where you start. And I'm just going to come over here and tell it I want to paste those numbers in that I copied. They're not text, so they shouldn't wrap around each other. I want to make sure they're black. So here they are. Now everybody understands the auto sum function in Excel. I'm assuming it's right here. It's got the sign. You can click the down arrow, but we're just going to come over here. It does do an average for you. Most people come over here and just double click and hit auto sum, and what it does, if you hit it twice, it'll sum up this row of numbers. When you click on Excel, you see that it's summed up A8 down to A13, but we want to sum all 20 of these numbers. So what you do is you just expand what you have. If I can get my computer to work with me today. So you just bring it across and say, I want to sum up all 20 of these numbers. So you check and it says A8 through D13. So that should be, it's actually through D12. I got a little bit low, but it's okay because we don't really have any numbers down there, so it'll be all right. And that gives us a total of 1,171. And so I remember the key to this is how many numbers do you have? We've added them up. We know what the total is now. How many numbers do we have? And we said we had 20, so you do equals, and you can click on this rather than retyping it if you want to, and just say divided by 20, and it will give you the mean. So now you have the mean of 58.55. So let's go back to PowerPoint for a second. Let's talk about the median. The median is the number that's in the middle, and obviously you know that the median is the piece of grass or something different from the highway that's in the middle of the road. The important thing about finding the median is that you have to put the numbers in order from the lowest to the largest. So you see that we have 5 numbers up here and they're scrambled. And so what you do is you put them in order numerically, and then you determine the number in the middle. So to find the median on these numbers, we can do the same thing by popping back out to Excel. And these are the same numbers that we had a while ago. So we go back over here to Excel. We're back here in Excel, so what we want to do is copy each one of these little short columns. So you copy, and where you paste it is up to you. It doesn't really matter. I copy these down. What we are trying to do is make these little short columns all into one long continuous column. Then we'll let Excel do the work for us. Of putting them in order and finding the number. So the last one here, we just do copy and paste. Then once we've finished, we come back over here and highlight our numbers and click on sort and filter, sort smallest to largest. And now we have our numbers in order. You see 38, 40, 41, go on down the list. So we have 20 numbers. That's an even number, so there isn't one in the middle. If we had 21, we would have an odd number, but since we don't, what we have to do is find the numbers that are at 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you take 58 plus 61, and you can do that in your head, I hope, anyway. So you take the 58 plus the 61, and you get 119. You divide that by 2, and you will get the median, or the number in the middle. So let me just type it out here for you. So you take 58 plus, I guess I have to make it a formula or it won't do anything for me, will it? So I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to say 58 plus 61. That gives me 119, and then I'm going to say equals 119 divided by 2, and that tells me my median is 59.5. So now let's pop back over to PowerPoint again. Mode is defined as the number that occurs the most frequently in your distribution of data. So we have 20 numbers. We want to know which number occurs most frequently. You see the example here is pretty easy. You can pick out that 5 is the number that occurs the most frequently in this example. But if we go back over here to Excel, we can look at our list right here, and you can quickly scan it and see which number occurs the most frequently. You go down the list and your eyes will look on it, and you see that it is 53 appears 1, 2, 3 times. 73 only appears twice. So 53 is going to be our mode. So you take the numbers again, and that's how you use the same numbers over and over to find these 3 things. So why would you want to use measures of central tendency? It's a quick and easy way to figure out some descriptive statistics, and usually it's got a central point of distribution, that's the mean, and it's a very stable way to measure data. Some examples of using the median, example, voting for a political candidate, you know, what's the median for that? Or the mode could be something like what's the most prominent hair color among your population, or their political affiliation, or any of those types of things. We do use the median, which is the number that falls in the middle. If you have a distribution of a lot of really low numbers, of really a lot of high extreme scores. And the mode is the value that's used when you are trying to do categorical data. So it would be the typical case in your problem's sample population. So when we talk about central tendency, we talk about the mean, which is the what and the when, the median, and we talk about the mode. So the mean is what? It's the arithmetic average. You take all the numbers, add them together, and get an average. The median is the number that's in the middle. You put them in order from smallest to largest. I guess you could do it the other way if you wanted to, and figure out the number in the middle. If it's an even set of data, you're going to have to take the two numbers, add them together, and get the arithmetic average for that. And then the mode is what occurs most frequently, and you use that for categorical data. So what are some different measures of variability that we might discuss? When we talk about variance or variability, it's concerned with how things are dispersed in a distribution or a spread. And in this particular case, now we're going to talk about the range, the variance, and the standard deviation. So the range is basically what it sounds like. It's from the highest to the lowest. So it's the difference between the most extreme scores. If you had somebody who made 100 on a score, you had somebody who only made 25, your range is going to be 75. So you subtract the lowest from the highest. That's a pretty easy step. So using our same set of data, we could go back to the Excel spreadsheet and put them in order to see which is the highest number. But since we only have 20, it's pretty easy to see that our highest number is 84 and our lowest number is 38. So if we subtract the 38 from 84, we will get that our range is 46. Now variance, it's the average, and it reflects the distance that the individual scores are from the mean, the thing in the middle. So how far out does your data spread? We call this spread, or we call this dispersion. And you'll see I put a little image here to show you some of the symbols that they use when you're looking at other people's studies. You might see these are all Greek symbols, so you know what they're talking about. So the population is this mu, and then this is the x, and the standard deviations and the variance. So you'll just be aware of what these symbols mean. So most of you have probably heard of a bell curve and all that kind of stuff, because this is a normal distribution and it's always called a bell curve. This is just a joke to show you that there's nothing normal about this. It goes all around. The mean for each of these is 4, but they have a lot of variance in it, as you can see. So that's why we want to know what variance is, because if you only looked at the mean, you would think that these were very similar sets of data, but they are really not. So variance, or the S2, first you have to compute the mean. So we have to figure out what the mean of our data is. Then we subtract the mean from each raw score in the distribution. We square the deviations, we total the squared deviations, and then we divide that by the number of scores that we have, or the 20 in our case. So before you freak out and think, oh my heavens, this is really terrible, you do not have to do this by hand. There are computer programs that do this for you. Here's our grid of the 20 numbers that we've been using during this presentation. And you see the first one's 84. You see the same row of numbers that we had previously. Then you have the D and the D squared. So what you do, remember from the previous slide that our mean that we had determined for these 20 numbers is 58.55. So what you do is you take the 84 minus 58.55. That gives you this number right here, which is truly 25.45, but I just rounded it up. Then you take the 25.45 and square it, which gives you 647. If you go to another example, so this one right here, 80, if you were going to do that one, you would say that it's 80 minus the mean, 58.55, which gives you 21.45, squared is 460. And for 79, the same thing, 79 minus the 58.55 is equal to 20.45, and then you square that. So that's how you do it, by hand, but there are computer programs and lots of tools out there to help you figure this out so that you don't have to calculate it for every number that you have. So standard deviation is an index to which the scores do or do not cluster around the mean. So everything depends on that mean. And it's also the square root of the variance so that we can obtain what's a standard interval or deviation that you would possibly see. So for an example, let's just pretend that for the first exam, you got a 37. Okay, probably wouldn't make you happy, but the mean score or the average is 50 and the standard deviation is 14. So 50 is our number in the middle. The standard deviation is 14, remember, so 50 minus 14 takes you to 36. 36 minus 14 takes you to 22, and you go the other direction. 50 plus 64, I'm sorry, 50 plus 14 is 64, and 64 plus 14 is 76. This gives you your percentiles that you have. So when you're doing this, what you want to do is you draw your bell-shaped curve. You plot the mean, so we knew the mean was 50 from this example. You determine what are the C grades, the ones in the middle. The B's are the upper limits and the D's are the lower limits, and then you fill in the A and F grades. So think about this, because we talked about standard deviations, and we talked about for the B, it's the upper limit, so it's plus 1 standard deviation. For the D, it's minus 1 standard deviation. But why is the C grade going to be plus half a deviation or minus half a deviation? It's kind of a different way. Why is it only 1/2 and not the whole? Because the C grades are in the middle, because, you know, that's where the mean is, the average. So they're in the middle and they're spread on both sides of the mean. So therefore they get half of it to the negative or the left side and half of it to the positive or the right side. So let's look at that. It's colored in a little crazy, but you'll see how it works. So here are the C grades, and you see they only went right here, and the other grades take up the rest. So you see how that works. So there's lots of different ways to find out these statistics. And sometimes you don't need the most complicated statistics in the entire world to do what you want to do for your problem, but figure out what statistics you're going to need or what you're going to get, and then find the best ways of using them. There's a statistical calculator right there. You see the link to it. When you get further into coursework and do other things, some people use SPSS, some people use MinTab. There's you can use Excel for a lot of things, and that's what we're going to use in this class. But there's a lot of things you can do to help you. There is actually websites out there that tell you how to figure out the mean, median, and mode just by typing in the numbers. There's also a website that will help you with the standard deviation. So there's a lot of help out there, but it's always good to do them yourself a little bit, at least, just to make sure that you know you're getting what is correct. So what I would like to do right here is show you how you can do the variance and the standard deviation in Excel. So when you get ready to do your homework assignment, you won't have a heart attack when you see you have to compute these things. Because when you do it by hand, it's rather complicated. As you remember from the slide, you have to take the number and find the deviation, then square it. And to find the variance and the standard deviation, it's a lot of mathematical calculation. But fortunately, we have lovely Excel to save us. Now, I'm using Excel on my Mac, so it's a little bit different than it looks like in Windows, but it's basically the same thing. So to find the variance, I type equals, and I want to choose this one that is var S, or var S as it says. That means it's the variance of the sample that I have. So I click that. And it says insert your range. So I come over here and choose my range. And once I have my range, I just hit enter. And it gives me my variance, which is 203.102632. Same thing for standard deviation. I come over here and I say, okay, now I want the standard deviation of this. I come over here and look in my things, and I want the standard deviation of the S of the sample. S stands for sample, P stands for population. Population is when you have every possible score and every piece of data there. It's not just a sample, but of everyone. Say you gave a test. If you had 20 people in your class and you had all 20 test scores, then you would have the entire population that you were doing the research on. But most of the stuff we do depends upon a sample, so you'll use the sample. So we got the standard deviation of the sample. You do the same thing again, highlight those numbers, click it, and it will tell you the standard deviation is 14.251. And you can change these so that they don't have as many decimals. If you want to just take them down, well, I always do that backwards, take them down to just say 2 decimals. But that's the easy way to do it. And so when you get to your homework and you see questions, I think it's questions number 13 and questions number 14, you can do that quickly and easily in Excel. So I wanted to make sure you knew that. So let's have a little bit of a review. So we talked about the mean, and that's the arithmetic average, a number that represents the central tendency of your data. The scores are distributed approximately symmetrically, that means evenly, about the center, which is the mean. This is the most stable measurement of central tendency, and you can do additional statistics on it later. The median is the number in the middle, and it's used when the distribution is statistically skewed such that the mean is greatly affected by extreme scores. Remember we talked about you might have a whole bunch of people who made 10 out of 100 on a test, and then you have another group who were making in the 85s to the 90s on the test. And there's not many clustered in the middle, so you have extreme data which will skew your mean. And then mode is the number that occurs the most often, and this is really just for making categories, so it's categorical data. And then we talked about measures of variability. How does this data vary? Variance is an average which reflects the distance of the individual scores from the mean of the distribution. In other words, how far out does your data spread? It's concerned with the distribution or the spread, and you can also use this for plotting grades. So that's a little bit of a review, and I just wanted to tell you that your homework assignment has a larger data spread in it. But remember the tricks about just copying it and pasting it into Excel. It depends upon which computer that you're using. Like I'm using my Mac, so it has a tendency to want to copy it as text instead of data. So I have to go and highlight it and tell it to format it and make sure it shows it as a number. But usually on a Windows computer, if you just copy this out of the Word document and paste it into Excel, it will paste it in exactly like numbers and in a grid. And then to figure out your mean, remember you just do the auto sum button, but increase the grid so it does every number in there. So you're going to have 17 questions that you have to answer on the assignment for this week. So if you have any questions or comments about it, or you need any help, just give me a call and let me know. Now, if you call my phone and I don't answer, it's probably because I'm stuck in a meeting, but you can leave me a message and I will call you back as soon as possible. Thank you.